Welcome everyone. Today we have a privilege of speaking with Professor Francis.Lemay from University Laval, and international respected ACT trainer, clinician, researcher, and one of the pioneers of acceptance and commitment therapy in the French-speaking world. His work has significantly contributed to the dissemination of ACT, the understanding of psychological flexibility, and the education of generations of therapists. Professor Lemay, thank you for accepting our invitation. We are delighted to have you here.
Oh, well, thank you so much for the invitation.
And we have a lot of questions, but today we prefer very interesting. You were among those that developed ACT in the French-speaking world. What fascinated you most about this model at the very beginning?
Yes, that is a lot of praise, and I do not think I am such a pioneer of ACT in the French-speaking world. I did participate quite a bit, but others were much more significant pioneers. People like Mathieu Villatte, people like Benjamin Schoendorf, people like Frédéric Dionne. But yes, I did put in quite a bit of effort as well. What I would say charmed me the most about ACT when I started discovering about the model was the emphasis that was put on um, emotional regulation through the process of acceptance. I was initially trained in classic CBT, like the Albert Ellis and I'm forgetting Aaron Beck's models, which put a lot of emphasis on the control of mind over emotions. Whereas in ACT, there was such a big emphasis on learning to regulate through acceptance, and there was also this whole motivational aspect to ACT through discovering one's values, learning to act in accordance with such values through committed action, and I felt like this was a great bridge between CBT and another model I was trained in, which was motivational interviewing. So I felt like ACT was a very complete package from the get-go, which made it extremely interesting to me.
Yeah, thank you. Do you know that Beck and Freud have Ukrainian roots?
I did not know about that. I had heard that Freud had I was it Serbian or a Czech background, but I didn't know about Ukrainian. Very
Near my
interesting.
town, near my city, Lviv.
Wow,
Yeah.
brilliant.
Aaron Beck is near Kiev,
Okay,
from
wow,
Chernobyl.
very interesting. So
Yes,
your country has deep roots in the history of clinical psychology.
clinical psychologist. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
ACT has changed a lot over the past 15-20 years. What change do you consider to be the most important?
Well, this has been something that was very important from the get-go, from the very beginning. But I have seen in the last 5, 10 years a very overt effort from the biggest names in ACT to integrate elements, whether they are techniques or a mindset from other approaches. Like ACT has always prided itself in being a very flexible model, but I do see with the whole process-based therapy model and uh, um, these new mindsets, uh, very significant efforts into encouraging clinicians to integrate elements from functional analytic psychotherapy, compassion-focused therapy, classic CBT, and even sometimes ideas that could seem extremely foreign to an ACT practitioner, such as a psychodynamic understanding of a person's personality, for example. I think some 20 years ago, this would have been almost unthinkable. And nowadays, it's encouraged as long as it remains coherent with the whole idea behind ACTS, the whole flexibility, psychological flexibility model. I do see this as a very significant improvement on the model.
Yeah, it's very interesting integrating coherence and psychological flexibility. Thank
Mm-hmm.
you about this idea. If you were a compare of a modern ACT therapist to a therapist 10 years ago, what should they differently today?
Well, I suppose one thing would be to try and make efforts to integrate, as I said in my previous answer, elements from other models, so that it remains coherent, but so that it bolsters your ACT competencies. One other thing, however, that I see being done much more evidently nowadays is the whole streamlining of processes, like applying acts in a less convoluted way in session, doing less of the, oh, let's stop what we're doing. I wanted to present you this metaphor and blah, 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 blah. Let's do this metaphor. Oh, let's stop what we're doing. Here's this little experiential exercise I want to do, which is not bad by any means. However, more and more I see clinicians, I attend workshops where people try to streamline these processes in very naturalistic interactions with their clients, doing a bit more modeling in session, adopting a very flexible form of speech when they're in session. So having these little, I have friends who call it doing acts like a ninja, you know, being a bit more sneaky, a bit more stealthy in implementing your processes in session. I do see this as a major difference uh, between the way ACT is being provided now and how it was provided 10, 15 years ago.
I think it will be very interesting for our students from online course for 4 years in ACT.
I agree.
Thank you. You talk about psychological flexibility in your work. Which of the 6 hexaflex process do you think is most undervalued by therapists today?
I think the one of the 6 core processes that's most undervalued is I did hesitate. I do hesitate between self as context, which I think is not undervalued as much as it's misunderstood, or the understanding of a lot of new clinicians is a bit flawed or incomplete. But once people do understand it, I do think they value self as context quite a bit. The one process which is most undervalued, I believe, and I often tell my graduate students that, is present moment awareness. And the reason why I think present moment awareness is undervalued is because I feel like it is the one process that most benefits from an actual therapy process. You can read a lot of ACT-based self-help books, such as The Happiness Trap by Russ Harris. And these books, they will teach you a whole lot of diffusion techniques, acceptance techniques. They will help you clarify your values, stuff like that. However, most of the time, when you read a self-help book, present moment awareness will be trained through mostly guided meditations and maybe sometimes a self-observation sheet, and it will stop there. However, I feel like in a therapeutic process, the therapist's present moment awareness will often help clients pay attention to or highlight ways of being, ways of acting, ways of thinking that they're not even aware of themselves, and which often require outside intervention so that they can see those. Sometimes it's a subtle way of like avoiding, cutting off eye contact, or just quickly changing topics and stuff like that. So a therapist embodying present moment awareness and modeling that in session, I feel is extremely powerful. And it's something that a lot of books cannot really do so easily. Hence why I think it's the most undervalued process.
Yes, it's a very deep topic, and I have another question about it. Many young therapists are well versed in ACT technique, but sometimes it feels like they don't think functionally yet. How do you think it's possible to learn ACT thinking, not just ACT exercises?
Well, that's one of the most important questions in terms of applying the model. Um, I do believe it's a normal part of learning ACT. That first off, you want to like apply the techniques a bit robotically, a bit automatically, like from a clinical manual, if you will, but through experience and through learning and through applying the model time and time again with a lot of different people showing up with a lot of different challenges, you end up learning to think more functionally. I do believe uh, attending like live workshops, experiential workshops, and receiving supervision or formal consultation with a well-seasoned ACT practitioner are probably the simplest ways to accelerate this learning. Um, but once again, being accepting of the fact that one cannot master such a complex model from only applying it after, I don't know, 6 months, a year of training, that's also a good reflex to have. Not being too hard on oneself as one is learning how to think like an ACT practitioner.
Yeah, thank you. The next question is for professional ACT therapist. What role do you see relational frame theory playing in the modern ACT? Should every practitioner have a good understanding of RFT?
I I will answer using the words of, I think it was Mathieu Villat. I do not want to wrongly credit someone, but I do believe, if memory serves me right, Mathieu Villat used this metaphor once in a workshop I attended. And he would say that learning how to apply ACT is a bit like learning how to drive. Like if you want to do a lot of long distance driving with your car, you mostly need to know how to drive. And if you're a good driver, you will reach your objective in 95, 98% of cases, something like that. A large majority of the time, just knowing ACT will work out just fine. However, knowing RFT is a bit like knowing how to do mechanics on your car, learning how to do repairs under the hood of your car. Most of the time, it will not be crucially important to know it, but when you're faced with a particularly complex clinical situation, when you're faced with some sort of a issue that you're not used to dealing with as a clinician, you will be extremely thankful to know about relational frame theory because it is the basic framework behind the ACT model, and knowing the tenets of RFT will help you develop ways of intervening that are in line and coherent with ACT, which sometimes with some people do not land as easily as with other people.
Yeah, thank you. I think RFT will have a new love, our participants.
Perfect.
If you could give young ACT therapists just one piece of advice that would you help them through their professional careers, what would it be?
I think the simplest advice, like the most go-to thing I can say is sign up to ACBS, the Association for Contextual Behavioral Science. Join up if you're able to. And I know financially speaking, it's not always realistic, but if you're able to, try and attend the World Conference when it's a possibility. It it is it is the one event that gave me the most bang for my buck throughout my career. It is the one place where I've learned the most, both theoretically, academically, and experientially speaking. I think it's an extremely rich organization, and it's populated with very, very passionate people who truly master the spirit of contextual behavioral approaches.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. What book has had the most impact on your thinking recently?
I feel like this question is extremely unfair. I do appreciate it, but I feel like it is so, so, so profoundly unfair. Um, Recently, I've been reading up on dialectical behavior therapy, but I will say it's not the most recent book that I've read, but I will say it's probably the one book that has most influenced the way I practice ACT in the last 12 years. And it would be Inside This Moment from
Clinical
Kirk,
side.
yes, from Kirk Strussel, Patricia Robinson, and Thomas Gustafsson. I think this book is absolute genius. And yes, it has had quite a significant influence on my practice. But
I'm
so many
looking
other
for.
books I could name. I could spend half an hour talking about my passion for so many ACT books.
Thank you. What's your favorite act metaphor?
This one is also a very difficult one to answer because so many of them are useful, and you need, if you want to do metaphors in practice, you need to know a handful of them because none of them will be one size fits all. None of them will land equally with everyone. But one of the metaphors that I've been using the most in my practice is this creative hopelessness metaphor. We like to call the ball in the pool or the pool party metaphor, in which somebody is organizing this big pool party, inviting all these people over to their place to play around the pool, and they suddenly see this beach ball in the pool, but it's one of the ugliest beach ball, and they get taken up with that sense of I need to get rid of this thing. I do not want to have to be subjected to it, and I especially do not want my guests to be subjected to it. And you start playing with your client or clients. It works great in a group setting about like reflexively, like automatically, what would you be tempted to do with that ball? And there's a lot of ways to illustrate experiential avoidance, fusion. There's a lot of ways to explore values, to explore present moment awareness, to explore committed action through this metaphor. It's extremely playful. You can stretch it over more than one session if you feel like it, if your client's playing along with you. So this is, I would say, one of my favorites. But once again, I mean, it's a bit like having to choose among your children or your friends, which one is your favorite. It's kind of, it's a little bit unfair. all of them tend to be quite amazing depending on the context.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your time and your generosity. Here in Ukraine, in Academy of CBT, many therapists are working under extraordinary circumstances, supporting people affected by war and profound human suffering. Conversations like this remind us that although we live in different countries, we are connected by shared commitment to help people build lives of meaning, even the presence of pain. Thank you for being part of that mission.
Well, and it was an honor to be able to contribute to clinicians for whom I have the highest amount of respect and admiration, considering the context that you're in, considering the hardships you have been facing for a number of years now. So it was an honor to participate this little bit to your event. And please, if you need anything from us Canadian therapists, do not hesitate to reach out.
Thank you so much. I have a calm time for you.
A calm time to you as well.